Hi and welcome to this new video, and in this video we're looking at the proximity flip. This is quite a difficult maneuver to really nail perfectly, but it depends on how perfect you want to get with it, because the idea of the proximity flip is that you do a flip of your quad around an object, and it's called a proximity flip because you're trying to get as close to that object as you can and keep that object in view throughout the flip. Now I'm using the Mati scene that I developed and used in a previous tutorial for the Mati flip, and this particular trick, the proximity flip, is very similar to the Mati flip in that at a low camera angle like 35 degrees it's really hard to do it. It's really hard to get the timing right on the sticks to keep the object that you're interested in centered in the view. If you come up to a 60-degree angle, it's a lot easier to achieve, and it makes it a lot easier to practice this particular maneuver. In terms of field of view, I'm running at 120 for this particular tutorial. You can run it at whatever you feel is comfortable. Okay, if you want to download this map, you can find it under my username, which is Ash at the top here. It's in download tracks on Empty Scene Day, and the scene is called Mati. Okay, so let's get into this. So I've already put my camera angle up at 60 degrees, and what we're going to be trying to do, I just kind of position my camera here so we can just kind of get a, yeah, that'll do there. Right. So you see these branches here that are sort of coming across here and forming a kind of a little bridge across the trees. That's going to be the focus of my proximity flip. So I'm going to be basically flipping through the gap at the top here and underneath the gap here, and circling around this point where the pine needles kind of join in the middle, trying to keep that in view. And it can take a little bit of practice to get this right, and actually this is easier to do from a practice point of view when the gate that you can see down the bottom here, when this gate actually isn't in the scene, because quite often when you're practicing this you come down a bit low and hit the top of that gate as you're trying to work out your timing. Let's just get my camera angle right again, so it's up to 60 degrees. Okay. So the basic controls for this is it's really kind of a really tight power loop, and we did some similar to this on the power loop video. If you look at the power loop video earlier on in the flight training, I was doing what are effectively proximity flips around the container movers in the coastal scene. But more typically you see this kind of proximity flip around trees and that kind of stuff. Lamp posts is another good example of where you can do a proximity flip around the kind of the horizontal part of a lamp post, keeping that in view as you flip around it. But we're gonna use these branches here, and you can fly through these, so you won't crash if you hit these in Velostrone. The colliders for the trees don't extend out that far, so you've got a little bit of leeway here to kind of get this wrong. A real tree will not be as forgiving, so you want to make sure that you've really got this nailed before you kind of get into trying it with a real tree. So that wasn't a too bad first attempt there. You kind of go in and look up and then try and get your power right to flip around it like that, keeping those little branches in view all the way through. And it's kind of a constant back pressure or back elevator, and then using the throttle, blipping the throttle to kind of set your distance around the object. So you can fly under it and look up, and then this one I've kind of fallen out of too early. So you kind of fly under it and look up at it, and then get on your power to flip around it. And that one wasn't as good as the first one, but yeah, kind of falling out the bottom of these at the moment, so not quite getting my movements on the throttle right to maintain my height. one was a little bit better. But you kind of get the idea with these is that it's very much controlled on the throttle. The elevator is involved as well in terms of how tightly you're trying to flip the quad, because the elevator is really controlling the speed of the flip, so the more you pull back the faster you're going to flip, and the throttle is really controlling the proximity of you to the object that you're flipping around, because the more throttle you put on, the kind of tighter you pull into it, and as you come off the throttle you kind of fall away from it, and it's getting the throttle right so that you don't drop out the bottom under gravity. So you've got to kind of make sure that you come over the top here and then you don't let yourself just kind of drop down like that. You want to kind of get the power in to keep you up there. So those were quite big proximity flips because I'm using quite a lot of power on those and flipping relatively slowly. You can tighten these up. A little less power. And those were a little bit scrappy, I would say, but you can see how using less power allows you to kind of stay in closer to the object. The danger with using less power is that it's quite easy to drop out of it like I did then. Or get on the power in the wrong place and kind of propel yourself out of the manoeuvre. And I'm kind of showing here all the ways in which you can kind of get this wrong. Some of these are looking quite nice, some of them are kind of demonstrating different ways you can fall out of the manoeuvre and not get it right. But you kind of get the idea. That's the proximity flip. It's controlled on elevator and throttle, and it's a kind of mixing those two together in order to control your proximity to the object and controlling your height and speed. You kind of need to come on the throttle as you're dropping out, going towards the ground, because gravity is going to drag you. It's going to drag you away from the object as you're coming over the top and falling. So as you come over here, this fall there is where you've got to kind of get the throttle back on to throw yourself back up in order to make sure you don't fall out of the manoeuvre. Okay, so that's the proximity flip. Hope it's been useful, and I'll see you on the next video.